This is David Mertz reporting for IBM developerWorks. I had the opportunity to attend the Strata conference in New York run by O'Reilly Media, where a number of topics about big data, graphic visualization, and data analysis were covered.
I'm an editor at O'Reilly Media. My name is Julie Steele, and I work on many books, but I also co-host part of the Strata conference and serve on the program committee.
I'm Iliinsky. I'm a freelance data visualization consultant, and I came into it through most recently grad school for user experience work. Before that I was a software developer, and before that I got a physics degree.
This interview is the first of two parts of the interview I conduct with Julie and Noah. I speak with them about both of their books, Beautiful Visualization and Designing Data Visualization, both from O'Reilly, as well as about general topics of data visualization.
How many programs, I assume this is a master's level or doctorate level?
That was a master's degree.
How many programs are there in the country or the world or whatever that do that sort of thing?
I have no idea what the count is, but it's becoming a much more, as the discipline's been emerging over the last couple of decades, it's become much more popular. Even the UW program has evolved enormously in the last 8 years, becoming a lot broader, a lot deeper. Many more applicants. They've started graduating PhDs from the program, so it's definitely a hot. Over the last 5 years, certainly one thing that has made people sit up and pay attention is Apple's success. And for the first couple of decades, people sort of wrote Apple off as a niche boutique company, and now you can't argue with their success, and it's absolutely attributable to their success in user experience. They craft a better experience than anyone, and companies are actually sitting up and realizing that this can be a real differentiator, and they want to hire that.
A whole lot of what is going on at Strata is about big data, and most of the visualization exercises in Beautiful Visualization, I don't yet know if it's the case for this one, tend to concern relatively small data sets, hundreds, maybe thousands of points at best. But I wonder if both there are good techniques and there are good tools for working with really large data sets, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of data points.
Certainly there are good tools. I think a lot of the techniques in terms of design and the process that you go through remain the same, no matter how big your data set is. There are going to be some extra challenges, especially if you have a lot of dimensions to your data, but in terms of number of data points, the things like color and structure and all of those kinds of, making sure you have the right data to suit your goals and your audience, those are the same considerations.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've been telling people about this book is that it's totally tools independent. It's totally data independent. You can give it to a statistician, a software developer, a graphic design student, and they will all gain practical, useful knowledge from it. So it's a book about design, not a book about data. Obviously, the tools are going to differ if you've got 1 million data points rather than 100. And there's going to be, as Julie said, some challenges, and maybe you're not going to display all your 1 million data points in a timeline because, as was said yesterday, you've only got 1,000 pixels wide to work with. You can't do 1 million horizontal data points, for example. So there'll be some aggregation or some zoom or some scaling. But again, the design principles remain constant, regardless of the size of your data set. Craft a much more personalized or detailed or customized representation if you've got tens of data points rather than millions. Millions, you can't touch every data point, but you can with 10. But you can still craft a certainly successful and certainly an aesthetic visualization of 1 million points. For all of the history of computing, we've been dealing with problems of scale and how do you take it to the next 3 orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
The tools will come along, the storage will come along, the processing will come along. Somebody will productize those because they know that there'll be a demand, or they will create the tools and the demand will catch up to it.
One way to probe dimensionality and to selectively filter is by having zoomability.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you're not going to do that in a print medium,
mm-hmm.
but in interactive computer displays, you can, if it's a dense map, you can just zoom into a region just to blow it up, but also you can allow other actions about applying a certain kind of filter, rotating the space of the projection of the data set.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a particular set of tools? I mean, I'm actually interested not just in the concept, but in the actual tools that might be available for people to do this sort of thing. What sort of things would you recommend?
I want to address one of your earlier points for just a second. You can zoom on paper. So if you look at the old style print rodalysis, you open the cover, and it's got a grid, and then you zoom in on that section. So the technology hasn't been quite as dynamic, but that has been invented.
Yeah.
Right. I I mean, as with all things with the tools, I'm going to quote Bob Dole and say it depends. It depends on what your data looks like. It depends on how you're allowing the filtering. So I don't know enough about the details of all the different tools that are available to recommend them in particular circumstances. But it's software, so we can do anything. Sometimes it's more expensive than others, but
Yeah, in principle.
you look at your network graph on Facebook or on LinkedIn, and if you know 500 people, you get a hairball, right? I know 200 people from college, and they all know each other, right? Like, already that's too many. And that's actually a complaint I have, not about the technology, but about the fact that people think that that's a useful graph to display to you. And my response to that is, don't show me every connection. I know the people I went to college with know each other. We all had dinner together every night. Show me the interesting connections, or aggregate the data, or abstract it in some way, and that actually reveals more interesting knowledge than just showing everything does anyway. Apply filters, and then you have that also addresses the computation constraints.
Right, this goes back to stating your goals and figuring out which data you need to answer the question that you're trying to answer. And so it's great if you have 1 million data points, but one of the questions you should be asking is whether it really requires all 1 million of those data points to answer your question. So a lot of times, as Noah already mentioned, aggregation or sampling or some other technique is useful and can still get the question answered in a way that your reader is going to be able to comprehend better.
Another thing that I think you didn't really explicitly talk about is there's a demand to reduce dimensionality when you produce an effective graph. I mean, certainly in an abstract sense, that's the way to think about it. So, you can't present your 1 million data points, but maybe you can represent the principal components.
Sure.
You can represent some kind of reduced, projection or reduced dimensionality of it. But are there kind of any general philosophical points that may be in this book that I haven't read yet, or may not, to how do you approach a problem, and how do you start to think about the type of reduction in dimensionality that might be available?
Well, so just like Julie said, you have to state the problem that you're trying to solve. And the answer is rarely show me everything, because again, it's a hairball, it's noise. When you can more concisely state the question you're trying to answer, or you say, what goal are we going to achieve when we know this? If we're going to cut one product line that's underperforming, I want to see the performance of my product lines. That you're now beginning to create a spec for what the visualization will show you, which is going to tell you what data to include and what data to exclude.
Small multiples are great for huge amounts of data.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you don't always have to put it into one graph or chart.
This has been David Mertz reporting from Strata. Stick around and listen to part 2 of my interview with Julie Steele and Noah Iliinsky.